Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the underworld. The Star Wars underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun, and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Whoa! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
What's up, Star Wars fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. We are your source for the latest breaking Star Wars news and discussion each and every week. And this week on the show, before the Kenobi series is even out, we have our first reports of what was almost in the show, but actually isn't. And it's really, really fascinating. We also know who's going to be playing Luke Skywalker. We saw him in that trailer, and we have more information about the actor. And we also have a new rumor about who will be writing a future Star Wars film. Super fascinating. All that and so much more on the episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. So excited to get into all of this. My name is Chris, and joining me is my good friend, Mr. Dominic Jones.
Yes, hello, Chris. Hello, Ben. Hello, everybody. Yeah, what a wild time to be alive. It used to be you'd have to wait like years or even decades for a book to come out to tell you what almost happened but didn't in a Star Wars movie. And now the period has just gotten shorter and shorter and shorter. I mean, it was only a month after Rise of Skywalker was in theaters that we started hearing about what would have been in Duel of the Fates. And now it's just like, who even cares if the show is out yet? Let's go 2 months before it's out telling you what's not in it. And I could tell you lots of things that are not in it, but let's tell you what's not in it and what was almost in it. It's kind of weird, kind of interesting, and I'm looking forward to getting into this story because there's a couple of interesting wrinkles to it, and I'm really excited for that. So it's going to be a great show.
Heck yeah. And also joining us is Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
How's it going, everybody? Yes, yeah, we got some scoops about the good old Obi-Wan Kenobi show even before we've even seen it. You gotta love it. Behind the scenes stuff, behind the scenes drama. Come on, we all love it a little bit. Even so, that should be interesting. And also, I just love Lucasfilm actually proved that they are willing and able to recast Luke Skywalker. It is possible.
No Mark Hamill de-aged to age 4.
I see. And until this news came out, I thought for sure that was just Mark. Put his face on.
And they were gonna have some like digital way of making his voice sound like how he was when he was 4 years old. That his mom has some like recording on like a phonograph or something from his childhood.
Phonograph.
We are joking. We are joking here, but I read something online.
Mark can appreciate that.
It just kept like informing my fear of, oh my God, they're actually going to do this. They're going to do something weird with CGI and deep faking with this 10-year-old kid. Don't please.
Oh
my God.
Again, if there was, if this was a Jon Favreau show, right? Like I wouldn't have put it past them, but because it's Deborah Chow and other people, I feel like they're a little bit more willing to go like, all right, let's find a new actor. Let's find a new person. But with John, he probably would have cast a 10-year-old, but we can't be certain. We can't be certain with John. He might have gone. He might have gone in with his. I
just love Jon Favreau potentially like watching the dailies, being like, "Wait, that's a real kid. What? You got a real actor? What?"
It's like we don't do that in Star Wars anymore. We just use new technology. Come on.
Oh man, so we're gonna get more into that and so much more. Real quick, we want to remind everybody we're on YouTube, so punch that subscribe button, Chewy, if you're watching on YouTube. If not, you can find us by searching for the Star Wars Underworld on YouTube. And we are also on your favorite podcast apps as well. If you're discovering us on YouTube and want to listen to us on the go, super chat with us. We try our best to bring as many comments as we can to the screen while we're talking, but sometimes we're distracted. So one way to make sure your comment gets to the top is to add a donation to it. And that will greatly help us with our celebration budget and our equipment upgrades and everything else to make the show a better experience for everyone. So I greatly appreciate any donations that we get with the super chat. And we look forward to seeing your comments and talking about them as they come up. You can also financially support us on patreon.com/theswu. That's where you can get Star Wars Underworld merch and where you can listen to our Patreon exclusive bonus show where we went into great detail about Larry David's handwriting this week to our listeners' excitement. So definitely check that out, patreon.com/theswu. As little as $1 will get you into those pre-shows, and then we have other tiers for other exciting things over there as well. And make sure to check out all the other shows that we have over at Culture State. We got Star Wars Culture, we've got Ion Cannon, and we have Chatter Squadron. All are doing amazing stuff right now. There's really funny short up on Chatter Squadron social media about our good friend Loden working on his Inquisitor, his Grand Inquisitor cosplay.
I gotta say, I think Loden pulls it off. He manages to bring together Jason Isaacs and Rupert Friend into just this masterful. Just feels right at home. Excellent work.
You will realize the sudden perils of cosplaying as the Grand Inquisitor now. So you should go check that out. Definitely go follow them on YouTube and TikTok.
Yeah, definitely check them out over there. And you can send us feedback at swunderworld@gmail.com. Right now, it takes us about 60 days to get to your feedback. But, that's just how it is.
He's not wrong. That's actually
true.
A conservative estimate.
swunderworld@gmail.com. We're really excited to be getting to your thoughts on the premiere of Book of Boba Fett next week. So stoked to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and after that, we'll get to your thoughts on season 7 of the Clone Wars. Just really get in there. Deep dive.
I got the duster right here. I dust off the emails, make sure we can read it. Check that out, swunderworld@gmail.com for listener feedback. All right, let's get into the news.
All right. I actually want to plug one more thing real quick off the top. I mentioned this at the end of last week's show, but this weekend I was supposed to be doing a panel at Toronto Comic Con. The panel is still going on, but I will not be there in person, although I'll be doing my best to hologram myself into it some way or another. But I still want to give the panel a shout out because these are my friends that are working on it that have done a great job putting it together, and I was happy to play a role in it, and I'm very sad to not get to go. So it's tomorrow. It's Friday, so today, as most of you are listening to us, at 3:00 in room 802B. It's called the DIY Hero's Journey: Turning Your Fandom into Creation. We're gonna try and get me in there. Sort of, some way, somehow. I'm not convinced it's going to work, but we're going to try. And but it's going to be a great discussion. And I'm really sad I'm going to miss it. And I'm really sad I'm going to miss all of Comic-Con. But c'est la vie. That's how things go. But go see the panel, and hopefully we'll be able to share some stuff from it after the fact as well. All right, let's get into the news, and we will start with what we've already been talking a little bit about, which is this frankly insane story that came out from the Hollywood Reporter this week. It's written by Boris Kitt and Aaron Couch, and this is the headline: Obi-Wan Kenobi, Darth Maul scenes cut, Luke Skywalker replaced during creative overhaul. And then the sub-headline is Mauled. Ray Park, who originated the character with Phantom Menace, was expected to reprise as the character, but was then written out according to multiple sources. So this is from the article. Darth Maul, a chief antagonist of Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi, who first appeared in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, is not expected to appear in the series. But sources tell The Hollywood Reporter not only was the the Sith Lord initially slated to return in the live-action Disney Plus series as a key villain, actor Ray Park was in active prep to reprise Maul. That, however, was before those scenes were scrapped amid a creative overhaul that ultimately saw other antagonists, including Darth Vader, added to the show. Hossein Amini, who was the original writer who worked with director Deborah Chow on the 6-episode series, and while it was reported that pre-production paused in early 2020, because Lucasfilm was unhappy with the scripts, the reasoning behind the pause was a little bit more layered. According to sources, Chow showed the scripts to Star Wars stewards Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, who were coming off their success of The Mandalorian, freshly launched in November 2019, and deep into work on season 2. Sources note that Filoni and Favreau were concerned about Obi-Wan covering similar ground as Mandalorian, the lone wolf and cub-like story of Kenobi coming out of hiding to protect a child-aged Luke Skywalker. Maul was one of the villains who would participate in the hunt for the pair. Vader was nowhere to be found in this faraway galaxy at this stage, according to those with knowledge of the project. Also, Filoni and Favreau pushed Chow to go bigger, according to several sources. In any case, those concerns made their way to Lucasfilm head Kathleen Kennedy, who pressed the pause button. Joby Harold was eventually hired as the show's new writer. It's unclear how far along in the process things initially unraveled. A boy was chosen to play young Skywalker, but no scenes with him were shot. As far as Park goes, the picture is more cloudy. One source says Park was on set for pre-production and was involved in stunt training. The source says footage of Park may have actually been shot, although another source says that it could have been test footage. Whatever the case, Park was back as Maul, or so he believed. In the overhaul, Maul was written out. One source says it was Filoni that conceptually keyed in on a way for Vader to be brought back as the big bad, with the Grand Inquisitor, a character made popular by Filoni in the animated series Star Wars Rebels, also put in the story. A Lucasfilm source contradicted the account, saying Maul was never intended to return for the series, nor did Park come to the set. Let's just stop there. Because that is a truly insane, again, it's a truly insane statement in this article. It's like, there's all this stuff saying this is what happened, and then it's like, but we also have another source that said none of it happened. So who knows?
Oh man,
who knows? But let's talk about this. So the basics of that is that the series would have been Maul would have been the main villain for the series, and it would have featured Obi-Wan and young Luke on an adventure. And I remember hearing that at the time when they paused production.
Yeah,
that they were concerned that it was too similar to Mando, the Din Grogu relationship.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you guys think of, Ben? Let's go to you first. What do you think of what we're hearing here about the revamping of the series?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it kind of lines up with reality. I mean, we were kind of hearing, obviously, there were some rewrites and changes in writers and whatever else. Who knows if it was extreme? I think maybe there could be some, like, maybe the truth is kind of somewhere in the middle, in between these 2 points of view of a lot of stuff happened and nothing happened. Maybe something happened, but it wasn't as huge as maybe they're reporting. But it makes sense that, I mean, Maul was on the table. And it was something that we fans speculated about it, like, okay, how would Maul figure into this? It wasn't until we got the word that, hey, Hayden's coming back, Vader's going to be involved, Kathy Kennedy's coming up on stage going like the rematch of the century. And we're like, what are you talking about? That sounds amazing. Kinda. I'm going to have to wrap my head around that. But, okay, Kathy, I'll follow your lead here. That I think before all that, it was like, okay, maybe Maul could figure into this. My initial impression of this, like, just overall story would be like, maybe they were trying to, maybe the original writer wasn't as keen on Rebels. Maybe they weren't up to date on like what was happening with Maul, or maybe they were going to try to write around that some way, or maybe they thought, hey, I can overwrite that. This is something in live action, and it's one animated episode. Maybe you can give somebody a break here. But sounds like Filoni and Favreau and Kathy Kennedy were of the mind that that's canon. Twin sons, whether you know how you feel about it, it's there.
It's fascinating that, like, it almost sounds like we came this close to having Rebels be overwritten, And then they went and did a 180 degree spin on this, and to where now we have not one but two Rebels characters in prominent places in the trailer. One of them looks like is going to be pretty prominent in the series. So it's fascinating little twist of fate there.
And one of the things too that I think is probably factoring into this is the Ahsoka series, because the Ahsoka series is not going to make too much sense probably without Rebels. From what we've heard about the series and from the casting that has been reported from the series, it sounds like this is basically a sequel to Star Wars Rebels. And so it makes absolutely no sense to have a post original trilogy era sequel to Star Wars Rebels, furthering the stories of those characters, and then go and have a show during the dark times that overrides and overwrites Star Wars Rebels. That's not consistent. Like, I can understand them taking one approach or the other, but you've got to do it the same across the board. And, you know, the Kenobi show and the Ahsoka show aren't going to come out too far apart from each other. Like, Kenobi is going to be coming out in a few months, and Ahsoka is just going into filming now and will probably come out in maybe a year to 18 months from now. So, you know, it's just, it's not going to work. It's not going to work to have that inconsistency between those shows. Maybe if there was 10 or 20 years between them, but they're too close. They have to both treat Rebels at the same level as canon for it to work. And so that's what my reaction to this too was like, oh, wow, of course they didn't do this because this doesn't fit with Rebels. Like, it doesn't make sense to have that story with Maul and Kenobi in there, because that story was really told and was the final chapter was told in Rebels. So it doesn't make sense from the perspective of, well, if you're just going to tell the lead up to the story and not get that payoff and then have to go and watch Rebels for that payoff, it's going to seem kind of confusing. So you either have to do that, which is confusing, or they have to do it again. And if we see it again or see it in a different way, then I think it does take away from that moment in Rebels. And then it doesn't work with how Rebels is being treated by the Ahsoka show. It doesn't fit.
Yeah. I'm going to bring up Joel with the super chat. It says, while this article is debunked, I could have foreseen a time pre-Mando when the security of the animated stuff would have been in question early on. I'm going to dispute this debunked statement because the debunking came from Pablo Hidalgo at Lucasfilm, and I have nothing against Pablo.
Love you, Pablo.
Yeah. I think Pablo is a good dude, but his debunkings rely heavily, and this is appropriate for an Obi-Wan Kenobi show, on a certain point of view. And he's debunked stuff in the past, or people have thought that he's debunked stuff in the past. And he was playing fast and loose from a certain point of view. He made some comments about the Rogue One reshoots, which we've since, had that independently confirmed by the guy who did them, with Tony Gilroy, that, it was a massive amount of the movie that was reshot. And same thing with some stuff about Palpatine, not having children in the lead up to Rise of Skywalker. And to be fair, it's protecting spoilers in that case, but why even comment is a whole other question. So just because Pablo says this isn't true, he probably knows some stuff that he can point out a few specifics that are untrue in this. But I think the Hollywood Reporter generally doesn't run something like this unless they're pretty confident in the sourcing. That's how these things tend to work. Not saying they can't be wrong, but I wouldn't be so quick to throw out everything that we just read in the article.
Yeah.
Just because Pablo said so.
And possibly maybe there might be elements of it that, might be not completely accurate. And maybe that's what he's kind of throwing out the whole thing because of that. Because it seems like the main gist of this seems pretty accurate.
Yeah. Maybe there's some stuff that can be disputed about how far along in the process was Maul cut from it. But, the thing about the Mando Obi-Wan relationships being too close, or the character arcs being too close, we've heard that before. And again, the stuff with Maul, if you said to somebody, a lot of people have said in the lead up to the show, I really wish it was an Obi-Wan versus Maul show like that. There's a camp of people that really want to see that, and it's very possible that the original writer was in that camp and tried to make that happen. And maybe he wanted to overwrite Rebels. Maybe he wanted to dance around it and try and find some space in between there. So, it's interesting, but I will just say I agree with the second part of what Joel said, that the animated stuff, there was a time when I think that stuff could have been overwritten. People wouldn't have been so protective of it. But now it has a real champion in Dave Filoni, being one of the guys who's one of the go-tos for live action Star Wars now, cut his teeth on the animated stuff, and I think he's well aware of the fan bases that exist for those shows, and he wants them to, feel like their stories are part of the bigger, larger story, because he wants them to be part of the bigger, larger story, as evidenced, like you said, Chris, by what we've heard about the Ahsoka show.
And I would definitely, I will say this: it's a good thing the sequel trilogy was set when it was set, after the original trilogy, obviously, and not anywhere near anything animated at the time, because that trilogy definitely feels like it's on its own and not very aware of anything outside of the original trilogy. I don't think
outside of the original trilogy and one line in the Revenge of the Sith.
Right. Even though J.J. Abrams, there's photographic evidence of him at the premiere of the Clone Wars movie. I don't think he's a guy that watched all the Clone Wars or Rebels or any of the other shows. Not to say he didn't care. I'm not questioning his fandom here, but he was doing his own thing with those movies. And I don't think he would. I think if push had come to shove, something in those shows might have been overwritten by, those movies, but it wasn't. It's fine. Maybe they had those opportunities and they did. Maybe they respected them more than I'm thinking. My point is like, I think it's interesting with Filoni's line of that I completely blanked on for some reason. So, let's carry on.
Okay. All right. I'll carry on. Let's see if you can remember what Dave said. Basically what I want to say about this is that I feel like I've seen everything I need to see from Kenobi and Maul, and I'm glad that they went the route that they did by bringing in Vader, because I feel like there's more. As we talked about last week, there's a lot there that you can play with. There's a lot of interesting ideas from the prequels and from the originals that can be explored with Obi-Wan's psyche, with Anakin's psyche, with how they both feel about their relationship at this point in time, and also looking back on the good times in their relationship. So I feel like there's so much there. Whereas Maul, Maul represents somebody in Obi-Wan's life who was always trying to bring out the worst in him. He was always trying to bring out the worst in Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan never took the bait, right? Even at the worst. Probably the worst thing that Maul did to Obi-Wan when he kills Satine in the Clone Wars, right? Obi-Wan is clearly heartbroken. He's devastated in that moment. But, he hits back at Maul with this sort of, this line that I can't remember what it is, but he says, that it's basically his version of, you failed, Your Highness. I'm a Jedi like my father before me. It has that same energy of like, I'm not going to stoop to your level. I'm not gonna give in to what you want me to give in. I know who I am, and I'm gonna stay true to it. And that's what Obi-Wan does throughout his life. And what was really sort of tragic and beautiful about the Rebels episode Twin Sons, the Obi-Wan and Maul portion of it, is that you realize that Maul has this sort of singular obsession. All he wants is his revenge on Kenobi. That's all he wants. And he could never grow past it. He tried to grow past it, but he never could. Everything else he tried to do in life, he failed, and he fell back down. He kept falling back down to where all he had left was Kenobi. And Obi-Wan won because he never stooped to that level. And so when Maul shows up Obi-Wan doesn't see the scary Sith Lord that we saw in the Phantom Menace, or the crime lord that we saw in Clone Wars or Kenobi. He sees this like poor broken old man who just is still obsessed with the one moment where his life went wrong. This is such a stupid comparison. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to make this. He's Uncle Rico in Napoleon Dynamite. He's still talking about how he could have been the star quarterback, but he busted up his knee when he was young. Maul still thinks he should be Vader, and he can't. He's obsessed with the moment where he lost that opportunity, which was when Obi-Wan cut him in half. And so he's just sort of, he's this pathetic creature, and Obi-Wan takes pity on him. He sees him. He's sad about him. He kind of comforts him in the end. And it's a really beautiful ending to their story. And I don't need anything more from it. I've gotten everything I need from it. And at a time, had they gone this way and this is the route that they went, maybe you could have thought about it some more and found some other things from their relationship that could be explored. There was a time I didn't think I needed anything more from Obi-Wan and Anakin, or Obi-Wan and Vader. But as we talked about last week, there's so much there that is that. You're welcome, Joshua. Thank you for that comment. Distracted me. But basically. But as we talked about last week, it's the Anakin Obi-Wan relationship still has a lot of meat on the bone. That's one of the key core relationships of the Star Wars saga, whereas Maul is more of a test for Obi-Wan to make sure that he's ready for the more important stuff. The Anakin stuff, the Luke stuff, and beyond.
I don't feel like Maul belongs with Obi-Wan because, like you said, like that story's been told. Like, I think there's spaces for Maul to come into Star Wars. There's been rumors flying around that there's other spots where he could come in to a series, and I think that that's great. And so I think that it's a disservice to Maul's character to put him in a spot where we already have that story told. We need him somewhere new, somewhere exciting, maybe a little bit earlier in the timeline.
Yeah, don't put Maul in a box and go, well, he can only show up in Kenobi stories. That was I have my issues with the Maul appearance in Solo, but one thing I really like about that is that they were taking Maul out of the usual stories that we expect him in and putting him into this other corner of the universe and trying to do something new and different with him. And so I'm game for more Crimson Dawn stuff in live action, animation, whatever you want to do it before Solo, or preferably in my book after Solo. But that, if you want to do more Maul stuff, that's where I'd like to see him go, rather than falling back into, well, it's an Obi-Wan show, so you got to have Maul in there. Doesn't have the same appeal that it once did.
And I think it was cool that Rebels got to finish that off. I think obviously Clone Wars was going to do something with him after season 5, when it ended, or even season 6. We didn't know what that was. But like, if you think about just in real world history, we have this point of view of like, Maul and Kenobi are these legendary rivals. They have this special relationship, albeit very dysfunctional and then trying to kill each other all the time, but they have a relationship. That has been a thing for 10 years, since like 2010, 2011. It's great, but I like that the animated shows got to explore that, bring him back, and do some interesting stuff with it. And, yes, bringing a character back to life literally is sketchy, and I get why people have a problem with it, but I'm happy with it because they did do something really interesting with it. And they ended it. They closed the book on that. They could do more stuff with Maul, like they can do with any character that's ever lived or died, because they can go anywhere in the timeline. But I think this is good. I like where this is going with this show, because the whole Obi-Wan and Anakin relationship has been with us for 45 years. That is a much deeper thing that, as you're saying, is not been explored totally so far. Not as much as even we could. I mean, we got some good stuff in the prequel trilogy, but even the prequels are like, and the Clone Wars could leave something to be desired.
Yeah, and with Clone Wars, we got a wonderful image, and wonderful and very full image of their relationship pre-Revenge of the Sith. Right. And we have a little snapshot of their relationship post Revenge of the Sith in A New Hope. But there is, even though they don't see each other very much in between that time, they're both on each other's minds. They're always on each other's minds.
Yeah. And it's interesting that now, and going back to, I remembered what I was going to say a minute ago. The whole line, yes, that finally. The whole line about going bigger. Filoni and Favreau kind of saying, "Okay, let's go bigger." It sounded like that Deborah Chow and the writers were like, "Okay, we're doing this show. We have Darth Vader. He's the elephant in the room. We can't touch him. We can't screw with that because that's not just big thing. It's also something that's in the films. It's a huge part of the original film. We can't screw with that." And I appreciate the fact that Filoni and sounds like Kathleen Kennedy too kind of encouraged them to go like, no, you don't have to just use Maul. You don't have to use stuff from the animated shows and bring that into live action. Would have been exciting enough. You can take these huge major players and bring them down to these shows and re-explore them and do it in a way. And the fact is if we got Maul, we wouldn't be getting Hayden Christensen back in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And that's something that like I am totally fine with.
Yeah.
And
that's
I think
a trade you make.
Yeah. So like, as much as I think that would have been cool, this is a way more emotional, way more meaningful reunion, I think, of characters. And just having the cojones to do this, to bring him back and explore this and have them fight again in some form or fashion that we've heard, is very bold. And you don't have to love it. Some people are still, advantageous about this, but it's bold. And I think Lucasfilm deserves credit for going out on a limb here and trying something new, because Maul would have been easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I got another super chat here from Joel. It says, I hope that when Kenobi beats Vader in the duel one last time, he says, "You still have much to learn," thus making Vader a learner.
Oh, that would be great.
I wonder how much fun they can have with taking all of those lines from A New Hope and just tweaking their meanings just a little bit. Like, because, we talk about this all the time. Those lines in A New Hope, as they were being said, meant something completely different from what they mean now. And I think it's fair game to continue to tweak their meanings in fun and interesting ways. And this could be a pretty good one. But I think Joel had the idea a couple of weeks ago. Obi-Wan should call Vader Darth at some point. Again, that's taking that line. That was his first name in '76 when they shot that. Alec Guinness was just calling this character by his first name, but now it's kind of him poking Anakin in the eye a little bit. Saying,
yeah, I think the first thing he's gonna at first call him Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna try to get through to him, and then by the end he'll be calling him Darth. Like that, he will be fully accepting Anakin's fate. Which I think, and it'll line up. I'm not going to say it's going to line up perfectly, but it will line up a lot better than A New Hope. It really can't do much worse at this point. So,
yeah, just have some fun with it. Play with those lines. I hope Joby Harold had a good time with that. That's kind of the main things. In terms of the go bigger mantra that you were talking about, Ben. Like, you think about it, this is, as if the article is to be believed, this was as they were working on Mandalorian season 2, and I feel like that was kind of the mantra for that show, for that season, because it was, they're like bringing in Ahsoka, we're bringing on Bo-Katan, we're bringing back Boba Fett, and then we're bringing in Luke as well. Like, they were just going bigger and bigger and bigger. But it is funny that in between then and now we had Book of Boba Fett, which at times felt like it was saying, hold off just a little bit. Hold off just a little bit. But yeah, it's fascinating stuff with the Maul things. I hope that there's still space in here somewhere for more Maul stories, as we're saying. They don't have to be related to Kenobi. In fact, it's hopefully it'd be actually be more interesting if they weren't related to Kenobi, and we can pick up on the other things that are going on in Darth Maul's life, the other triumphs and mostly failures that he has. So the other sort of big piece of news to come out of this Hollywood Reporter story is the identity of our new Luke Skywalker actor. We got our new Luke Skywalker actor. We saw him very briefly in the trailer, and that is young Grant Feely. Grant Feely is playing Luke Skywalker in Obi-Wan Kenobi. There's his headshot. Look at him. Looks like a young Mark Hamill if I ever saw one. And speaking of the original Mark Hamill, he had some words of encouragement for the young man. Hamill tweeted, "Grant Feely looks like a perfect Luke Skywalker, and I am wishing him all the very best. Hashtag the Force is with Feely." So I'm looking forward to seeing what this kid can do. I'm looking forward to seeing what this kid can do. I mean, we saw him in the trailer going pew pew with his imaginary spaceship controls, and looking forward to seeing what he can do.
I'm hoping he gets some airtime. I'm hoping we get just a little bit of Luke Skywalker. I know we've got a lot of Luke Skywalker lately. He's not been deprived of screen time, but getting him at this age, I think, is going to be very interesting. And the fact they got an actor, they got a real person to play him. It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's funny. We're talking about Rebels. Back when Rebels was on, it was a big deal to get just like a little glimpse of young Luke Skywalker in that Twin Sons episode right at the end. Like you see him from very far away. And I can't remember, that episode come out before or after The Last Jedi? It must have been before. Because I feel like
feels before. It feels like it was before.
And so like at the time it was like, oh my God, like a little bit of Luke Skywalker. That's incredible. And now here we are. 5 years later, we've had The Last Jedi, we've had The Rise of Skywalker, we had Mando season 2 finale, we had that Book of Boba Fett episode. Like we're not starved for Luke Skywalker content anymore.
Yeah, it came out March 18th, 2017.
Okay, yeah. So at that time, it was kind of like it was the Luke appetizer, getting us ready for the main course that was. The Rise of the Last Jedi. The Last Jedi.
Yeah, the Rise of Skywalker was quite a course. Yeah, no, this is great. I've not seen anything that he's been in. He's been in a music video, and now, thanks to him, I know what Shudder is, which is apparently Netflix for horror or something like that.
Okay.
So,
yeah, interesting. All right. So let's keep going and talk about another character from the prequel trilogy that people want to come back. Specifically, one dude wants this guy to come back, and that's Mace Windu. And Samuel L. Jackson has been pushing this pretty much ever since Revenge of the Sith, that Mace Windu is still alive and he's out there and he's kicking, and he should come back. He survived that fall.
Yes.
And, apparently he worked on a movie recently with Bryce Dallas Howard, and he took this as an opportunity to pitch her, just seeing as she directs episodes of The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, on the idea that maybe Mace Windu should come back for another round of Star Wars. And he spoke about this during a live episode of the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast. Here is a clip.
Everybody back Sam. What's going on? The Obi-Wan trailer just dropped the other day. Is Mace Windu, he's alive with one hand somewhere. Somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. Well, that's the same way I think about dude from, Jurassic Park. He's somewhere riding around on velociraptors with one arm. He's just on the island just
right.
riding raptors, But
should I hold out hope at this point for Mace?
That's a huge history of people with one hand returning in Star Wars. I asked, the only person I've ever said that to about coming back was Bryce Dallas Howard, because I just did a movie with her, and she directs episodes of The Mandalorian and stuff. So you think you might be able to hook a brother up? I mean, you like me, right? And she's like, I love you, you're amazing. Put me back in this.
Put me back in the game, I'm ready.
Put me in, coach, I'm ready. I'll learn to, lightsaber left-handed. Come on, hook me up.
Can I just say, I'd be more interested in Sam Jackson's character from Jurassic Park coming back and us getting a TV show or a movie about that than I would be for Mace Windu to come back.
Oh my gosh.
I know
plausible at this point.
Yeah, I know people want Mace to come back, But at some point, some of the characters have got to stay dead. At some point, some of the characters.
Yeah,
gotta stay dead.
we'll keep Padme dead. We'll keep Corday and Dorme and
So we'll just keep all of the Naboo handmaidens dead.
Yeah, all the Naboo handmaidens. Dooku can stay dead. But here's the thing: is like even more so than Maul. If anybody's got a character arc left, it's Mace Windu. I mean, Mace Windu is such a fascinating character. Like, he was the one who was right about Anakin. Like, he was right that the kid shouldn't be trusted. And he was right about the Chancellor. And he was right that he should have been killed at that point. Like, he was right. And
he got the perfect conclusion because he was right about all of those things. But nobody listened, so
nobody listened. But here's the thing, though: what is the hanging thread? Is what happens when you're Boba Fett and you can't get vengeance. You can't avenge what happened to your father because the person who killed him is dead. They haven't really dealt with that.
I see. I don't know. I got everything I needed out of Mace and Boba from those 3 episodes of Clone Wars. That satiated me. That he tried. I genuinely love the ending of that arc, and maybe it's a little bit rushed, but I really like it because you see throughout those 3 episodes of Clone Wars Boba struggling with does he want to be a killer? Does he want to be a cold-blooded killer? But then he goes on this sort of adventure to try and kill Mace, and in the end he comes face to face with Plo Koon, and Plo Koon makes him do the right thing. And there's this moment in Boba Fett's story where his life could have been turned around, but then he comes face to face with Mace, and Mace basically has nothing to say to him and doesn't give him anything, doesn't give him the slightest bit of remorse. And so Boba commits to a life of crime in that moment. And I really like that sort of like, I felt like it solidified Mace as the person that sent him on this journey. And, as we talked about a lot with Boba Fett, there's a tragic element to him based around the fact that his father died and he witnessed it at such a young age, and he never got closure from it. And Boba Fett never getting another chance to kill Mace Windu, I think just adds to that lack of closure, and I think is really interesting. I have a feeling you guys might want to respond to that, but I want to bring up, we got another super chat from George. George says, I don't understand the Mace hype. He's the mean vice principal character and served his purpose in the story. I would be disappointed if he returned. I'm kind of with you. Like, Samuel L. Jackson is an incredible actor, and he makes this character interesting to watch. And I feel like there's more you can do with Mace in the prequel era. But you were just laying it out, Chris. That he was right about so many things, and I think that makes his story just kind of a tragic note to end the mean vice principal's character arc on. The fact that even though he was a difficult guy to love, he was kind of right about a lot of things, and he was right, but it still killed him. Being right is what killed him. It's kind of tragic. There's a tragic note on that. So, look, if they bring Mace back, fine, fine. As long as it's a good story, fine. But I feel like this is a good. I feel like his ending is appropriate for that character.
His ending's okay, but I just feel like there can be more to be done with his character than some of the other characters that they've brought back. And I don't know, like, I understand like but if you just watch the movies and all you care about is like what is on the screen during the movies, and you don't really think about it more deeply, like his character is, kind of a cardboard character. But like when you get into lore, I feel he's like more fascinating than that. Like the whole thing about him using Vapad and it being kind of skirting between the boundaries of the light side and the dark side, I think is like super interesting. And the fact that he's got a purple lightsaber. Like, I understand he has a purple lightsaber because Samuel Jackson said, "You better give me a purple lightsaber," and they gave it to him. Like, I understand that's where the origin of it, but like they worked it into the story to make him really unique as a Jedi. There's a lot of qualities that Mace Windu has that no other Jedi has, and so I feel like there should be more done with that character, and maybe they can use de-aging technology. I mean, and to be honest, Sam, he looks great for his age.
And he's done the de-aging stuff in Captain Marvel.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, he doesn't look too different, but so like you could go back and maybe tell some Clone Wars stories. Like that would be pretty cool. Who suggested that? Yanni in the chat suggested that. That would be cool. But either way, I just feel like there needs to be more from this character than we have. I feel like there's a lot of untapped stuff there. I wasn't satisfied with the amount that we had him in the Clone Wars. I want to see more of that. And Joel brings up Shatterpoint. Like that's I don't think that's canon, but it's
a Legends novel. I just read it last year. It's good.
So yeah, I want to see more. I want to see. I think Sam has a point that there needs to be more of this character. I just think we got to make it, like you said, Dominic, fit into the story in a way that makes sense. And I don't know quite how to do that fully. But again, I think back characters have been brought back for a lot less. And I don't think it's explicit or necessary that he dies. I think it's necessary that he fails. I think it's necessary that, he's taken out of the picture. But I don't know if his death per se for his character is something that's necessary for his character to mean something in that movie.
And we just got done talking about Maul, and you can watch you can watch all the movies and then tell someone that hasn't seen anything, go, oh yeah, they brought Maul back. And they had a whole thing with him. And I think a lot of the reaction back in the day was like, he's just a one-dimensional character and he got cut in half. How did he survive? And why would you do this? Like, what's the deal? A lot of those same complaints could be, applied to Mace. Kind of a one-dimensional character, didn't do a whole lot on screen, and he died. He served his purpose. Why would you want to bring him back? The difference is, I think, with Maul is they, like I said earlier, they did something interesting with him. They, hey, just bringing Maul back just to have him fight Kenobi again, it's cool, but it's not very meaningful. Having him come back and create his own personal army and then take over a planet and then try to seduce Kenobi to the dark side and do all this kind of crazy stuff. That's interesting storytelling. They had a plan. I don't know if they had that planning. I don't know. Maybe George Lucas really did just go, oh, just bring him back because it's cool. Like maybe he did do that, but they ended up going in the direction of, hey, this is interesting. My one thing is like, I'm open to having Mace Windu come back. Yeah. Logically speaking, it's completely plausible that he landed on his feet and he's okay. He's wandering around with one arm. Maybe he's got a robot arm at this point, but it still doesn't justify that. You can't just be like, okay, bring this character back because let's do something interesting. And I'm just thinking about what could you do? You bring him back in the dark times. You're going to have him fight Vader. Like, what are you going to do with him? And he's already kind of fought Vader. He got killed by Anakin kind of proxy. Like, there's a lot of stuff you could do with him, but I'm not sure where it could go.
Yeah. What the reason why I don't think Mace should come back is that in the prequels, he represents the status quo. And when Palpatine wins, he literally throws the status quo out the window. And so I feel like that's, it's a symbolic death as much as it is a character death. But again, stranger things have happened. It could happen. And I would think if you brought him back, you would want to do something that is unexpected. And I would think the Mace Windu, if they were to continue that story, you would want. I wouldn't think you would do a Mace goes after Vader story, because we kind of know how that ends. You kind of have to know how that ends, right? And what is there left in the Mace Anakin relationship there? Like, Mace was right. Okay, good. he can rub it in Vader's nose as Vader cuts him in half. So I would think maybe you would want to do something where he, becomes some kind of hermit or something, or becomes like maybe he becomes a Han Solo type or something. There's places you could go, I suppose. But ultimately, the thing about Star Wars is there are so many great characters in the saga, and with every new show and new movie, we just add more and more to them, and you constantly feel like, oh, this person could have their own show, this person could have their own movie, or this person could have their own whatever. And unfortunately, it's just going to be impossible to get to all of them. And while I agree that there is certainly potential for more Mace stories, preferably pre his death, in my opinion, that it's one that, with every new show that comes out, I feel like there's a character on there that, supersedes him on the list for me, where I'm like, oh yeah, okay, Mace would be cool, but there's this new character, and I'd kind of like to go with them. If we're gonna get a new show, I'd like to go with them as the lead instead of Mace, and with everyone it goes along like that. So
if you give me the option between Mace Windu and Pelimoto, I'm like, it's a hard. I'm not sure how
I Pelly is a supporting character to me. I don't know if I want
supporting character now. Who knows what she could do with her own series? Come on.
Fair point.
This is what I would do if I was writing this. Mace survives. Boba finds out. Boba goes and hunts him down, just like Maul's hunting down Kenobi with that same level of rage. But they end up in a situation where they need to work together to survive, kind of like in the episode with Dooku, Anakin, and Obi-Wan in the Clone Wars.
Where they're all tied together. Yeah.
All tied together. And they have to work together. And then ultimately, Mace ends up saving Boba's life. He sacrifices himself to save Boba's life. And that completes Mace's arc of being selfish, right, but selfish, because he finally sacrifices himself for somebody else, and that adds a better note to the ending of his character. And then for Boba, it plants the seed that then grows into the good in him that he then has in the Book of Boba Fett.
Was Mace selfish? There's a lot of words I might use to describe Mace Windu. I wouldn't have said he was particularly selfless, but I wouldn't have said he's selfish.
He's got the grand scheme of things. Like I just rewatched No Way Home, and it's like
Me too.
Doctor Strange in that movie. He's not really thinking as much about the small picture of like what's going on in Peter Parker's life. He's thinking about the big picture of the whole universe and what's going on, and so. It's selfish from one perspective when you're looking at interpersonal relationships, but then ultimately it's because the character is focused on the whole multiverse. And I feel like Mace is kind of that type of character too, where like, he can be a bit of a jerk to people because he cares about the big picture rather than what's happening individually to people.
I think he lacks empathy, and also lacks pulls himself out of it, and he's like a true Jedi in the way that they're supposed to be, without emotion, without personal attachment, just about serving the galaxy. And that's, the bottom line. And, he doesn't have any emotions. That's why I kind of hated that ending with the Clone Wars ending with him just going like, well, you're going to have to. I'm like, that's all we get between Mace and Boba. Come on. But that's pure Mace Windu. Just I don't feel anything. You have all this hate for me. I don't feel anything. I don't have any emotions. Your father tried to kill me and I killed him. He's very simple minded about it. I think an interesting thing to go with Mace Windu is how do you kind of deconstruct him and see. I think that's one good thing that's come of these shows is that, what we saw with Boba Fett and what we probably are going to see with Obi-Wan Kenobi is the peeling back the layers. And the Marvel shows have done this exceptionally well of taking these characters that didn't get a lot of screen time and putting them on display and putting them in the spotlight and go okay, what makes them tick? What's going on in their head? And, I think Mace Windu would be a good character to do that too. But I'm not sure I'm comfortable with completely undercutting his because that's a huge moment in galactic history. His death Anakin contributing to Palpatine killing him, that's a big moment. I think that's something that needs to be considered in all this is, anytime you're going to bring a character back, like, what does it mean to not have that character die in that moment? Now, you're saying that character survived that moment. Well, what does that mean for the overall story? Is this worth it? And so I like the other suggestions of like maybe bringing him back. You could bring him back in Obi-Wan Kenobi, where we might have some flashbacks with Anakin and Obi-Wan. What if Mace Windu showed up?
Yeah, like the reason you can bring back Maul, to me, is that Maul has served his purpose in that scene, in killing Qui-Gon. After he's killed Qui-Gon, he's done the important thing to Obi-Wan and to the galaxy. Everything that happens after that is just sort of tying up loose ends for the movie. And so it doesn't mean anything in Obi-Wan's journey per se that he kills Maul in that moment. What's important to Obi-Wan's journey in that moment is that his mentor is lying there dead, begging him to train Anakin. And so Maul coming back doesn't take anything away from Obi-Wan in that moment, because the important thing to Obi-Wan in that moment isn't Maul. Mace coming back, I agree with what you're saying, Ben, that it's important that Anakin and Palpatine take out, as I said earlier, this symbol of the strength of the Jedi Order. Like you guys have said, Mace plays kind of he does kind of play the long game. He takes kind of a macro view, and he can be rather cold with people. And as a result, I wouldn't call him selfish, but he might seem selfish from time to time, when really he's just, he's thinking about things at a much larger scale than everybody else is. He's not worried about the one-to-one interaction. He can be very, I'd say, straightforward is how I would describe Mace, rather than, I wouldn't call him simple. I'd say he's straightforward, Ben. But yeah. I think that's kind of that's my thinking for why while I agree that more Mace stories would be a good thing, should be pre-death.
So basically, Sam Jackson wouldn't like this show very much.
No, I think he'd be mad at us.
Hello. I'm number one Sam Jackson fan here. So I'm the one that's going to get invited to his party, his birthday party. Y'all not
Look, Sam, if you're watching, I know you're watching. Come give us your story pitch. You've had a long time to think about this. I want to hear his story pitch.
Yeah. All right, let's keep moving on. Let's keep going here. Let's talk about what might be the next Star Wars movie. This comes from the Ankler and Jeff Snyder on Twitter at the InSnyder. That is reporting that Damon Lindelof, creator of Watchmen and co-creator of Lost and The Leftovers, is working on a new Star Wars movie. Damon Lindelof coming in and gonna write a new Star Wars movie. This this is a dude who's worked a fair bit with J.J. Abrams. He worked on the Star Trek movies with J.J. as a writer and a producer. He's also worked with Jon Favreau. He wrote Cowboys and Aliens. So this is a guy who's got connections with people who work at Lucasfilm. Like, there's a lot of people at Lucasfilm who came over from Bad Robot, which was J.J. Abrams' company, and having worked together with the Lucasfilm people on 2 Star Wars movies, decided to come on over to the Lucasfilm side. And Favreau is somebody else who's worked with, who's very involved in Star Wars. Could be someone who would give him a good reference as well. I don't know. What do we think? What do we think of Damon Lindelof coming over to Star Wars?
I don't think I've seen much of what he's worked on. I saw a little bit of the first season of Lost. I mean, I like what I saw, but it wasn't enough to hook me to keep watching it. And I haven't seen much Watchmen stuff either, although it's something on the list of things that I want to check out. I've heard The Leftovers is good. Again, I haven't seen it. So I don't have a really strong opinion about this, other than I really just get intrigued whenever anybody's rumored to have anything to do with Star Wars because I'm like, oh, interesting. How would this person? What would their take be on Star Wars? So it excites me that they potentially are still coming up with pitches for films behind the scenes, because after a while it seemed like a lot of ideas kind of got put on the shelf that we were having, like that potential Cantina show or whatever that thing was going to be, and Solo 2 and who knows what's going on with the Rian Johnson films, and I haven't heard anything about Taika Waititi's film in like a year.
Kevin Feige's supposedly doing something.
That's right.
Just like
whatever happened to Joe Johnston's Star Wars film? From 10 years ago. But exciting. It motivates me more to check out some more of that stuff.
Yeah. Ben, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I haven't seen a ton of his work, but I feel like I've seen more than I usually do when there's a new writer writing a Star Wars movie that comes up in the news that I'm like, I've never heard of this person. Like Damon Lindelof is someone I'm very familiar with. I've seen, all the Star Trek movies. I've seen some Lost. I'm familiar with his work. Some I've really liked, some not crazy about. Star Trek Into Darkness comes up in my memory as a movie I really, really liked, but also I'm like, yeah, that movie's kind of weird. So and apparently he wrote that. So but it's kind of crazy that I've always attached him in my memory to J.J. Abrams. The fact that he hasn't been really involved in Star Wars up to this point is kind of crazy. So I'm interested. He's got a lot of really good credits under his belt. A lot of really good things he's been involved with. So hey, I'm totally down with this. What he could be doing, who knows? But more Star Wars movies being written. This is a good thing.
I did like Star Trek Into Darkness more than I think some people did.
I did too.
Star Trek Beyond was where the franchise went off the rails for me, which is I think the best one.
The best one.
It's like Rise of Skywalker and Last Jedi all over again. But yeah, I appreciated Star Trek Into Darkness. And I see he also wrote Prometheus, which I thought was a pretty entertaining movie as well 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And the Alien franchise.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting, what sort of stands out to me about his filmography is that there's a lot of big budget tentpole action movies on here.
Yeah.
With the Star Trek movies, with Prometheus, World War Z, Tomorrowland, Cowboys and Aliens, all of those things.
I need to watch all of those last 3 ones. I haven't seen them.
Yeah, those are all big, they were big, studio movies that were with high budgets and lots of special effects and all that stuff. And then you go to his television stuff, and you have things like The Leftovers and Watchmen that are, they're like this, and Lost as well to an extent. It's this prestige TV thing that people talk about.
He did some episodes of 9 episodes of Crossing Jordan. I caught a little bit of that. I was really young when that was on, but I remember it being on and it being an interesting show.
Yeah. So the point I'm getting at here with this sort of interesting mix of experience in the big budget blockbuster world, but also experience doing these kind of these more story-driven, character-driven stuff on television.
Yeah.
He might be. That's interesting to me. That makes me think that he might be a good fit because he'll know the parameters that are expected from a huge, $200 million budget movie. But he's also done a lot of interesting stuff since then. That is, perhaps more focused on story than spectacle, which is, the criticism that gets thrown at blockbuster movies is that they're more about spectacle than story sometimes. And so he might be able to walk that tightrope between the two and create something that has something to say. Watchmen, from what I understand, has a very defined point of view and has something to say, but can also do the bang, pow, woo that we all love as well. So I think, he's not somebody that necessarily makes me jump up and down and go, ooh, yes, this person, the way, Taika Waititi does. But he has me intrigued. I feel like this could be a good thing. This could be a good choice and a good direction for Star Wars. So I could see this working. Could see it working out.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll continue to monitor that as we do all of those projects we listed.
Please,
at
can
the
we
top.
see it within 10 years? Please, please, please.
One of these movies eventually will have to come out. Theoretically, hopefully starting with Rogue Squadron next year. Hopefully.
The more they announce, the higher percentage of things we might get. Statistically speaking, maybe, yeah. But somebody else who could come back to Star Wars. We talked a little bit about Sam Jackson coming back to Star Wars, and maybe in a future movie. There may be a future movie that Damon Lindelof could be involved in. Is Daisy Ridley? Daisy Ridley, of course, played Rey in the sequel trilogy, and she was at an awards show recently, and they always like to ask. They always like to ask the Star Wars stars, when they're coming back to Star Wars, and Daisy doesn't really tease anything with her answer, but it's kind of fun. So take a listen to this.
Do tell me, do you miss being Rey? Are you going to make a return to Star Wars?
I'll always be Rey.
Oh, I love that.
Soundbite.
Well, enjoy
Thank you.
BAFTA, and great to see you.
Thank you
Lots
so
of
much.
love.
She was right. It's a soundbite. It's a great soundbite. I'll always be Rey. Bring her back. Bring her and John and Oscar. Bring them all back. We already talked about Oscar being on Galactic Star Cruiser, so send Daisy out there as well to promote that, and we can read too much into it. Why not? Why not?
She's not gonna pull a Harrison Ford on us. I don't think. She's gonna be like, "Yeah, you can only bring me back if you kill me off." Like, she's. I love when these actors really show passion and ownership over these characters, and seem to love them as much as we do. So that's it's great. I love hearing stuff like this, and it gives me hope that hey. It may not be next year or the year after or even 10 years from now, but I think eventually we will get her back as Rey and John and all those guys.
The trend with these things from my point of view is that as we move into this sort of like culture that moves so quickly and we're constantly jumping from thing to thing to thing, it's going to take a lot less time for this generation of Star Wars actors to come back than it did for previous ones. It took Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher, 30 some odd years to come back after Return of the Jedi. It took Ewan McGregor 12 years or 17 years. So that's already less. And, you look at that Spider-Man movie that came out. It took a while to get Tobey Maguire to come back, but less time to get Andrew Garfield to come back. And then, there's a voice in the Doctor Strange trailer that sounds a lot like somebody who played a Marvel character for a long time and then swore they were done playing it after a very successful movie. So I think it's likely that when Episode 9 was coming out and when it came out, we all said, "Oh yeah, we'll get him back in 20 years." I mean, it's been 3. It wouldn't shock me if 3 years from now we're like, "Hey, did you see the Daisy Ridley appearance on the post sequel trilogy show on Disney Plus? What an exciting thing that happened." I think that's more likely than it was in the past.
I think we'd be remiss to discount both positively and negatively from certain points of view the effect of like online chatter and people talking and people saying things, and the discussion over the past 10 years around the prequels has vastly changed because people of that generation that grew up on those movies, myself included, got online and started talking about them. Now kids are basically born with cell phones in their hands. So like, I think the kids that love the sequel trilogy are probably already online talking about it. They're just, there's just going to be more and more of them as we go along. And there will be a vocal majority before long of people saying, "Hey, I want Rey back. I want Rey Skywalker. I want Rose. I want Finn. I want Poe. Whatever."
Yeah. The thing about the way our culture is now is that we love, we're driven by nostalgia, and people are nostalgic for different things. And, you know, so often the big moment in a new project is something that calls back to something from an old project. You know, I love the Spider-Man No Way Home, but like, you know, one of the best parts of that movie is when when the old Spider-Mans come back, the old Spiders man, you know, they come back, and it's like, and it's really exciting and really wonderful. And you get, you know, reaction videos are a thing now where people love to react to things. And you know, what gets people to react is seeing something familiar in a trailer. And, you know, if you end the trailer for season 2 of, you know, the adventures of the Resistance, that's set, you know, six years after Rise of Skywalker, you end season 2 with something that hints at Rey, you're just going to get countless videos of people going, "Oh my God, she's back. Can you believe it? It's incredible." And just going wild. And that's just how things are. That's just how we do it. And Disney and Lucasfilm know the value in that, and they're willing to pay. They'll probably be willing to pay very handsomely to get these actors to come back, so that you can get those moments and that virality that will then cause people to want to check out the new thing, which will then bring more money into their pockets. And so they won. Yeah. And just on the subject of, you know, sequel trilogy actors coming back, as I said a couple of weeks ago, I'm convinced Oscar Isaac's going to be in Rogue Squadron, even just for a little bit. So we'll have only had to wait for 3 years or 4 years for that one. Like, it'll have been such a rapid turnaround, and they were COVID years, so they don't really count.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they're just
they made a big deal about Grogu leaving the Mandalorian, and then now if you watch you know, that show like back to back, like people in the future watching season 2 Mandalorian and jumping to season 3 are gonna be like, "Whoa, what, he's back already? He's in the ship. What's the deal with this?
What did I miss?" Yeah, it's true. Joel coming through with another super chat. "I yearn for the day the sequel trilogy generation dominates the discourse, and to see what their takes and reads on Star Wars is." Yeah. Exactly. Nothing depresses me more. Well, no, that's a lie. Lots of things depress me more than this. But one of the things that always makes me feel sad about Star Wars fans is when you see people who defended the prequels for so long just viciously attacking the sequels.
It is bad, man.
And it's like you don't have to like them. You don't have to like them. By all means, don't like them and tell us why you don't like them. But don't think that the way people spoke about the prequels is the appropriate way to talk about movies that you don't like. There's a way to convey that you are disappointed in something or you don't like something without trying to just, you know, destroy it for everybody else. Because that's the way people talked about the prequels for a long time. And then people try and pretend that didn't happen now. It very much did. Very much did. Look up George Lucas blanked my childhood, and you'll see. It boggles the mind that people who were on the receiving end of that for so long are now so willingly giving it and saying Disney blanked my childhood about with the sequels. It's insane.
It seriously, like, it blows my mind, like how the irony is completely lost on so many people these days. Of like you said, if you don't like the sequels, you don't like the prequels, that's fine. It's totally fine. I think the biggest problem in this fandom usually is that people just can't agree to disagree. They gotta be like, I gotta tell you what, you're wrong, and do all that. Like that's a whole thing. But like, just the idea of like people that like grew up, like if you said something positive about the prequels in like certain things, you would get attacked, like full stop, like, and say horrible things. I had to deal with all this, and not just that, but like in the media, like any video or news site or whatever that talked about the prequels was just like bashing them, just nonstop, horrible stuff. And then now we have the sequel era where, they're saying the same things. It's like, wait a second, you guys were defending the prequels from the same stuff. Do you not get the correlation here? Like, you don't have to like them, but you also don't have to hate them that bad.
Yeah, exactly. So gotta learn from the past. If we don't learn from the past, what is that? Those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Isn't that it?
That's basically Star Wars fandom in a nutshell. We just repeat everything.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I guess all I have to say is that, there are a lot of people who just like most people have seen Star Wars out of order. There are a lot of people who episodes 7, 8, and 9 are the first movies that they watched, and they're a reason why they like Star Wars, because of Rey and Finn and Poe and Kylo and BB-8 and the portrayals of Luke, Han, and Leia in those films. Like, that's why they like Star Wars, because they saw those movies in theaters and they loved them, and it was a big part of their childhood or whatever it is they were when they first saw Star Wars. And they went back and watched it. And, I've definitely heard from people who are Gen Z who say, like, I go back and I watch A New Hope and I don't feel the same things I do, because it's different. I don't relate to it, that style of filmmaking. Like, it's jarring. And I know that's probably sounds very jarring to hear someone say that if you're someone that grew up with the original trilogy, because there's this perception that they're these sacred things.
Sacred Jedi texts.
Yeah. There's so much meta in that film. I love it.
Yeah.
But like, really there's going to be very different perspectives. And I agree. I just like Joel, I can't wait to hear when those perspectives are more common in just discourse everywhere, because it's there. It's just in certain spaces. Like if you're on TikTok, if you're on TikTok, it's all about the sequels, and there's just an equal part of Star Wars as the Disney Plus stuff is, and as the older stuff is. And so there's a lot of people who, just like the people who were holding on, clutching their pearls of the original trilogy back in the 2000s, just like there were those people, there are people now who are doing that with the sequels, like you said, and it is unfortunate, but it's something.
And just imagine the future we have to look forward to. All the sequel fans will have grown up, and they'll be talking about, sequels this new trilogy, it's trash.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, I've seen a couple of hardcore sequel fans hating on elements of The Mandalorian because it doesn't fit in with it. It's just like, just let it be. We should all just let the parts be that we don't care for, man.
I just love the whole, like, the post you start reading is like, oh my gosh, I love The Mandalorian, I love what they're doing, and then it ends with like, it's so much better than those trash prequels, sequels, and whatever else. Like, you could have just stopped there. You could have just said, hey, I love this thing, but instead you have to keep going and you have to trash something else. Just keep it positive for 1 second.
Yeah, and just on the point about the sequel trilogy and the fans that were brought in with that, people underestimate what a moment The Force Awakens was, what a cultural moment in time that movie was, and some people will begrudgingly acknowledge it and say it was all about nostalgia, and let's not kid ourselves, nostalgia played a part in it, but it was a lot more than that. That was a moment in time where everybody was talking about Star Wars, whether you were, a hardcore fan like everybody listening to this show, a casual fan who just saw the old movies back in the day and were like, oh, they brought back Harrison Ford, that's fun, or someone who was being introduced to Star Wars for the first time because you were seeing new characters like Rey and Finn and Poe, and they were drawing you in that way. So Force Awakens was a moment in time, and it's not one that we'll fully appreciate until a few years down the line from now. All right, let's keep going. and we're going to get into a story here that is a little bit. Joel quickly will come in with one more super chat from Joel. Rise of Skywalker will be someone's first film. It's true.
So many people.
A lot of people. Yeah. I mean, less so than Force Awakens and Last Jedi because it made less money. But that still, it'll be somebody's first film, and that's awesome. That is awesome. Like, forget what I think of that movie. If that's what made someone fall in love with Star Wars, that's terrific. I love it. All right, let's get to a story. Let's get to a story that I guess is technically qualifies as a spoiler, but it's not. It's not.
It's a little tiny spoiler.
We're putting the spoiler alert just in case.
Yeah, this is.
It's not in the trailer. It's not in the trailer. It's not in the trailer. EW stuff.
But like, I'm trying to like come up with a good comparison. It's like if you're hearing about a James Bond movie and they're like, yeah, there's a scene that takes place in Ireland in it. Like, that's what we're talking about here. That's what we're talking about here. But whatever. It's a spoiler, I guess. I'm not, and by the way, I'm not downplaying the story. Like, I think the story is interesting, and shout out to Star Wars Newsnet for reporting this. Like, I'm not downplaying it. I'm just downplaying the fact that anybody should think this is a spoiler. That's all. That's all I'm saying. But the spoiler is, this is the non-spoiler spoiler, is it's a factoid. It's a cool factoid. That's what I'm going with. The factoid is that Anchorhead will appear in Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's a place that we will visit in the series. This is what Newsnet says. They say, that's right, folks. We are finally going to visit Anchorhead in Star Wars after hearing about it 45 years ago. And yes, it was actually faintly seen from a distance in the first teaser for Obi-Wan Kenobi. So it is in the trailer. So it's not a spoiler.
You should know it was that.
I'm just joking around here. Yes, Tashi Station is technically on the outskirts of Anchorhead, which we of course saw in Book of Boba Fett. But Obi-Wan Kenobi will take us into the heart of Anchorhead and its main transportation hub. In the Obi-Wan Kenobi trailer, we see Obi-Wan traveling amongst the commoners. What, did the Queen of England write this story? Obi-Wan Kenobi traveling with the commoners. Sorry, Newsnet. That's just a funny word to me.
Sir Ben Kenobi on the bus with the common folk.
Yeah, that's no. Oh, look, Ben, you didn't tell us that Sir Benjamin had started writing for Star Wars Newsnet.
Oh yes, he comes and goes from time to time. No,
he's on a
no.
This is what we see Obi-Wan Kenobi traveling amongst the commoners to keep a low profile. He's on a local transport in one shot with a town and city in the distance with the central tower. We can confirm that this is the legendary Anchorhead. And that's what we'll be seeing. That's of course where Luke says to Obi-Wan, look, I can take you as far as Anchorhead. You can get a transport there to Mos Eisley or wherever it is you're going. So there it is. We'll actually see Anchorhead in the show. That's cool.
Nice.
That's cool.
There was some speculation when Book of Boba Fett was coming out that like the big city that we see in the whole was maybe Anchorhead. And obviously it was just a different part of Mos Espa we'd never seen before. I'm liking that we're gonna see finally Anchorhead what it is.
Are we going to see de-aged Camion Fixer in Obi-Wan Kenobi after we saw them? We saw them in Book of Boba Fett. They've got the actors. Just get John in there with his technology, and he'll turn those two.
Here's the thing. Just use makeup. Just use a little makeup.
Well, they'd be like Luke's age, right? Like they'd be kids. We got to find Grant Feely's friends.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. You gotta get brand new actors. That's
true.
They're wearing the same. They're wearing the same outfit.
Yeah, they never change.
Wearing black jackets.
Yeah, and Cammy's got to have the hat. Yeah, they never change. Or is it Fixer has that? One of them has a hat. They can never change. They can never change their wardrobe in their entire lives.
That's how it is on Tatooine. You get a costume and you stick with it.
Yeah. Hey. When you get a look, you stick with it. I've been wearing the same shirt and roughly the same hat for 7 years. Let's go.
But it is cool that we've heard about Anchorhead as long as Star Wars has been a thing, and it's taken 45 years to finally like see it. That's really cool. And the fact that they've got some creative liberties in like nothing's, I'm sure there's stuff in the expanded universe, but like, you know, some like canon stuff, we really haven't gotten anything. So like, and the fact that obviously it's some kind of maybe transportation hub or something. I think they're talking about a air traffic control tower or something like that. It should be interesting to see what they do. I'm wondering if it's like where like Obi-Wan is going to work, maybe he's trying to get off the planet. Maybe at that point he's leaving.
Yeah, I suspect he probably leaves through Anchorhead. I think that'd be kind of fun. Be a fun little Easter egg in there, factoid. You know,
yeah, it is interesting though. Like, it'll be interesting. I think they're going to be thinking about this a lot more than we ever will. But like the logic of like, okay, why does Luke and Ben Kenobi like go to Mos Eisley to get a transport? You know, what's in Anchorhead that's not in Mos Eisley, or vice versa. I'm curious about the whole layout of Tatooine and what's going on there.
I'm sure we'll find out about all of it when we're playing Lego Star Wars next month.
That's true.
I wonder. That's something I'm curious about, because you know we've heard that there's going to be expansions to the Lego Star Wars game focusing on the Mandalorian. So I don't know how soon we'll see Kenobi stuff, but they at least have heard about it.
Yeah. So question about the Lego Star Wars expansions. I don't know if anybody knows this, but are those like expansions where like there's more to play, or is it just so you can get the characters?
From my understanding, it's just character packs, right?
Yeah.
They're the DLC that you get the
I was hoping I misunderstood it.
yeah, it's like the deluxe versions and the deluxe version of the video game, and then you get like, I think it's Rogue One, Bad Batch, Mandalorian. That Grogu is in there, but they specifically say he's a non-playable character, which I don't get.
Aww. I guess you just carry him around if you're playing.
Tags along with Mando, which is cool, I guess. Yeah. But like, I hope they are willing to like. I know it's the Skywalker saga, but like, throw us a few bones, throw a little extra content in there, maybe a few extra levels, like, you know, some Mandalorian, Rogue One stuff would be cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
They really should. I really hope they do.
Or you know, they've done this game. I'm hoping this won't be. I'm sure this won't be the last Lego Star Wars game. That I'm hoping like we get. I would love like an additional game that has like all like, you know, this is Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker saga, Lego Star Wars, everything else, Rogue One, Solo, Bad Batch, Clone Wars, everything.
Yeah, it'll just take them, you know, another 8 years to make it. That's all. And there'll be so much new stuff. They'll be like scrambling to get Acolyte stuff in there and everything as the years go on and on and on and on. All right, I think that's about it. That's it for the news. So I think we can begin to wind things down and wrap things up.
You have 30 seconds to send in your listener feedback for us to read it on the show. Go.
Your time starts now.
Oh, man. Time's up. All right. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening on your favorite podcast apps, for watching on YouTube. We'll be back same time, same place next week. That place is YouTube, and that time 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you are a member of our Patreon, we go live a half hour early. That's when we record live our pre-shows on that same YouTube channel, and we send a link out to that before we do it via Patreon. So you can get that by subscribing at any level. So we'll be back with another show next week at the SWU. That's where you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook in the meantime, so you don't miss the latest breaking Star Wars news. Dominic, thank you so much for hosting tonight.
It was my pleasure, as always. Great fun getting into everything with all of you and just chatting about what we won't see in Obi-Wan Kenobi, because that's apparently enough to fill most of a show these days. But I love it. I love it. It's terrific. That's always been an interesting aspect of Star Wars, is the road not taken. And I think it's fun to get a little glimpse at it a little bit early this week. I just noticed that my golden dice were not in the shot all show, so I just had to move them in here.
I knew something looked weird, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I couldn't place it. I'm like, something's different, but I don't know what.
Yeah, I just glanced over. I'm like, that's not where they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be at this end of the mic arm.
Somebody's been playing Savak.
Yeah. But yeah, great fun. And again, I'll remind everybody to, if you're listening to this on your way to Toronto Comic Con, 3 o'clock, room 802B, DIY Heroes Journey panel. You can see everything that I spent the last week working on, but won't be there in person for. So check that out. And like I said earlier, hopefully we can share some of that after the fact. Oh yeah, where is the puffer pig? That's interesting. I just moved the puffer pig into a special new spot in my collection. Like I did this past week, over the past 2 weeks, I've been rearranging my collection. And one of the things I wanted to find was like a good spot for Percy. And I found one and I put him there. And then I forgot that I said I would bring him to the show this week. So maybe next week I'll take him out of his special spot and bring him down so he can give a quack, quack, or whatever it is, whatever the noise is that puffer pigs make. I'll bring that for next week. Someone remind me before the show, George, in the chat. Remind me during the pre-show.
Yeah,
I'll make sure to get him. But yeah, that's it. See everybody next week. Can't wait to do all this again in 7 days' time.
At Dominic J25 is where you can follow him on social media. Ben, thank you for hosting too.
Oh, it was a pleasure as always. It's funny. This is kind of a slow week. After a trailer breakdown we got last week, this is kind of like a slow, but we managed to knock out a good bit of discussion and get a lot of stuff happening. So yeah, this was fun. Who knows what's next week or the next week or the next week. We know we're doing in May, but next month or so is going to be interesting. See where it takes us, what we might get. But yeah, tonight's been great. Talk to you guys in a week.
Wait, we can't end the show now because, look, we got breaking news. There's a Mace Windu show. It's official. It's a Mace Windu, a Star Wars story. We have to spend another hour debating this.
April Fool's is another couple weeks.
Yeah, that's right. You didn't hear that. All right, thank you so much, Ben. At Ben Hart with no E's, where you can follow him on social media, and you can follow me at Seek3PO. Remember to punch that subscribe button. We want to thank Joel and George for all the super chats that we got this week. Really appreciate it. And of course, patreon.com/the SWU is where you can pledge to monthly support us and get that pre-show that we've mentioned so many times. Make sure you check out Star Wars Culture, Ion Cannon, Chatter Squadron. There's so much great content coming out from all of those shows. The easiest way to find them is on YouTube channels of their names, but also Star Wars Culture and Ion Cannon are on Spotify and other podcast apps as well. So if you're just listening, just search the podcast app you're listening to us on for Star Wars Culture and for Ion Cannon. And Ion Cannon is spelled EYEON Cannon. That's what's going on there, so that you can easily find it. And yeah, swunderworld@gmail.com. That is where you can send us that feedback for the next slow week. We'll have some stuff queued up for that. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back next week. Until then, for Ben and Dominic and all the other great folks we have here at Star Wars Underworld, my name is Chris, and may the Force be with you.
It's a wrap.